Good evening, faithful saints. Welcome to Spiritual Principles of Recovery. Help us to bless the Lord with our psalm tonight. Hallelujah. Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will sing. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name, when the sun's shining down and the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, when the world out with suffering, there's pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will sing. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name, Jesus. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, yes, your name. Take away, my heart will choose to sing. Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name, Jesus. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name, Jesus. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You give and take
Awesome. All right, how's everybody doing this evening? It's good to see everybody here tonight. It's good to know everybody that's on the other side of that camera tonight. Let's open it up like we always do. Serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Man, that's always good news to me, because at least I know with that I can, there we go. That's a good catch. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And with that, like I said, with the serenity prayer, at least we always know that we can take a minute to pause before we get into something, right? Say that prayer. It takes a second. There you go. All right, so tonight, what are we going to talk about? It's a little bit different deal than normally, but it comes down to this, and it's a personal thing. It says, I don't want to be what? Religious or spiritual, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm probably going to step on some toes, and that's okay, because I can do that, you know? And part of my life, when someone stepped on my toes, my life got a little better. You know what I mean? Because if I got a little upset about it, I had to look at that and kind of think about it a little bit. So one of the things that as I was preparing this, I realized, you know, this is one of those topics that's just really dear to me. It's something that I'm almost passionate about. And the reason being is because when I first came in, I just didn't understand, right? In other words, I didn't really understand about religion, and I didn't really understand about spirituality. I just kind of thought, well, I mean, I was somewhat raised in it's interesting. I was thinking about this on the way up here. I used to would have said I was raised in a religious home. I'm not going to say that tonight, because I don't really feel like that was true. I actually think that my parents gave me a pretty good view of what God was like. And that didn't have a lot to do with religion. And that's the whole point that we're going to talk about. So I was raised in a home where people cared about a relationship with us, their kids, in a loving manner, so that we could learn what it's like to be loved and to love. But one of the things that I thought about also is that I'd been hurt in a lot of churches. I really did. I got a feeling I'm not the only one, right? And so a lot of us have experienced things in our lives that were uncomfortable, you know, and I don't know. I just was like, some of the churches I've been into, I promise you, I don't think God was there either. I really don't. I mean, I saw him, you know, I saw pictures, I saw stained glass, I saw a lot of things, but I just didn't see God, you know, and that's just kind of the way I grew up. And, you know, I basically grew up in religion. Very indoctrinated with religion, and it was really confusing to me. And it was one of those things where it was like I was given all these rules to live by. And I was given a whole bunch of rules to live by, and it seemed like as long as I was trying to do those rules and kept coming up short, I just was like, God was ashamed of who I was. And I felt it, so it must be, right? What do we know? Feelings are always not, fact. Correct? And thank God they're not. But I did. I sat there and I thought, okay, I'm following the rules to the best of my ability. You're supposed to. I've been told you love me. But I always feel shame because I'm not able to do it. And then they said, but that's really okay, because if you say this magic prayer, then it doesn't matter what happens. You can be the worst person in the world, which really confused me. And it's going to be okay. So I'm like, okay. And I don't know, somehow that just didn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like I began to think to myself, oh, Lord, what am I supposed to do? On one hand, I'm told that I am supposed to follow these rules, and if I do that and I do everything right, you're going to be happy with me. And on the other hand, I'm told, hey, it doesn't matter what you do, it's all going to end up good anyways. So I kind of figured out in my quick thinking, I'm like, hey, maybe this isn't so bad. You see, so what I started thinking to myself, I guess I can just live any way I want. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You know? And I was like, I had heard all about this thing called God's grace. This whole religious aspect of God's grace. And I thought, man, that is so cool. Basically what it was or is or whatever is what? A get out of jail free card. So, I mean, it's like, here's the thing. God has so much grace. Not sure exactly what that was, but I knew he had so much of this stuff that it didn't matter what I did. It was all going to be okay. So why should I care? Well, the problem with that is where it kind of started taking me, right? It ended up leading me to what? Addiction, alcoholism, relationship with some real cray-cray people, including some two-legged higher powers. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Thank you very much. It ended up, I had extreme bouts of anger, depression, and divorce. So it really wasn't that good for me. It was almost like, but you're supposed to love me regardless anyways, God, and I can do anything I want because you got grace, because I can do anything I want. Well, let's look at what Proverbs 14:12 says about that. It says, there is a path for each person that what? Seems right. What does that mean? Seems right. Sounds good to me. Isn't that what seems right is? Seems right, but it ends in death. And there's two forms of death, right? There's physical death, la morte no mas. We get that one, right? But there's also spiritual death. And so I began to experience both of those. So I did what most people do. I just decided that, hey, maybe what I need to do is I need to figure out my own life. You see, what it began to do is I started trying to play by the same religious rules I was told to do, but I didn't care if I stood up to it. Didn't care if it made any sense at all. But I went back and I said, okay, God, I'm not happy, so I'm going to go ahead and try to do this religious thing again. And the problem with that was that my wife and I started this Bible study. And I was like, dude, I'm looking, right? And that's, I think, what made it halfway good was that I was actually looking for answers. And so I'm teaching these people as I'm learning, right? And I'm kind of going, this is cool. Well, the thing starts growing so big that the Bible study gets bigger than the church. Never a good sign, right? So, of course, what do you think happened? I'm a 19-year-old kid. So what's the 20-year-old kid? What do you think happened? Next thing you know, preacher got some issues with me. Now he's got issues with my teaching. Now he's got issues with everything. Then he starts coming against me. Then everybody else does. Whatever, man. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. We decided that I didn't want to live under that crap anymore. What I started realizing was, you know what? Sounds to me like if that's what love is, because the preacher's supposed to show love, that's what godliness is, I don't want it. I don't want it. And I made a conscious decision. I was done. And when I say done, I'm not talking about done like I'm done working over there or teaching over there. I was done. Like, I don't want, God, I really, honest to God, I just don't think I want you. Because you know what? It's too hard to live by these rules. And I got grace anyways. I don't have to worry about it. So why do I want to? And I remember driving across the bay in my wife and I looked at each other. We were just quiet after the last meeting, and we just literally had just gotten the right foot of fellowship. Man, you know what? That's happened a few times with me, so maybe it's a thing. I don't know. But I'm kind of proud of a few of them. But at any rate, it was like I looked over at her, and tears were running down her face. And I knew how hurt she was. And I was like, look, maybe what we need to do is just live our lives any way we want to. And then the enemy won't come after us anymore. And God's not going to require anything from me anymore. I bet I'm not the only person that's ever been there, right? And y'all know exactly what happened too, right? A year later, the miscarriage, then the divorce, right? Lost a job, lost a home. And unfortunately, I didn't go, hey, God, can you help me? What do you think I did? What are you trying to teach me now, God? Why are you doing this to me? How much more you think I can take? Not a good thing to say. And I believed that. And I believed that garbage, that somehow God was trying to beat me down because either it was because I left or it's because he was trying to teach me something. I don't know what it was. But whatever it was, it wasn't going to end right. So after my divorce, I started thinking to myself, you know what? I still don't want to be part of that. I don't want to have nothing to do with religion ever again. Because you know what? It made no sense to me. That whole concept of a loving God beating you down just didn't make sense. But I began to think there's got to be a better way. And so I decided that I was going to go the spiritual route. I was going to be a very spiritual person. Those people scare me today. But at any rate, I decided that I was going to be very spiritual and that I was going to begin to get more into the metaphysical aspects of life and get more into beliefs that, you know, that maybe I needed to look past myself, which is a good thing, but I wasn't looking in the right direction. Yeah, I was always trying to make sure that I only gave good energy, and didn't receive any bad. I wanted to make sure that it was the yin and yang of life, right? That I lived this way of karma. The problem is I wouldn't live in any way that I wanted to be treated, right? So the whole karma thing wasn't working. None of that stuff was working. And I mean, it just left me to no longer want to just coexist, man. So I decided I need to get more specific in this whole spirituality thing. Right? And so I would go do the thing. I would do the monk thing. I would do all these different things, right? And I had the prayer beads on, man. I mean, I was like, I'm getting into it. So I decide, I go, you know what? Maybe I need to get a little bit more into studying New Age. So I did. And y'all know what the definition of New Age is? Or the actual definition. We'll take a look at it right here. I love it because it's true. It's a practice that fosters what? Self-awareness, man. A connection with something bigger than oneself. Oh, so I'm not everything. This is why I got stuck in step 2. I loved step 2, right? That a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Not God, but a power. More good energy, less bad. And so as I'm sitting there and I'm going through this, I treated it that way. I treated it as a practice, like you do with any kind of religion, except I didn't want religion. And so I began to say things bigger than myself. So one of my favorite ones was the universe. It's all in the universe. And so I started believing in the whole concept, as it says in the book, that everything in the universe works out just like it's supposed to. Y'all believe that? Then let's bring a keg in right now and all get drunk because it's the way the universe is supposed to be. That's the biggest bunch of crap I ever heard in my life. No, everything in God's universe happens just like it's supposed to. That's the difference. But here's the thing. I started doing like this. I started saying to myself, well, maybe there's a mixture of religion and New Age, and I'll get into a balance. It's funny. I call that today buffet religion, right? My sponsor, and Dwight used to always talk about that. He'd sit there and he'd go, yeah, sounds to me like you got a whole bunch of different ideas. Maybe you want a little bit of that buffet religion. Get a little of this and a little of that. Don't want that. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, things like maybe I'll take a little bit of God always taking care of me and always providing for me. I'm not too much into the forgiveness. You can keep that. And I'm certainly not into me feeling bad. You can keep that. But I just take a little of this and a little of that. And the problem is, half measures avail us how much? Nothing. And if I'm taking a little from this religion and a little, so I'm doing just a little Buddhist time, right? And then I'm doing just a little meditation, right? And then, and then it gets really confusing when you start going to all these different people, and then you're sitting there trying to figure out how to meditate with your yogi, and you're sitting there and you're meditating, and the only thing you can think of is hot as crap in here, and I want to go, right? I mean, literally. And you're doing your whole yoga practice, and you're sitting there, and you're, right? And they're banging the bells around, ding. All that's going on, and literally I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Just where I was at, right? And I remember doing the whole hot yoga thing, and I'm like getting into, warrior position, right? Or whatever. And so next thing you know, I'm in downward dog, and then I just kind of fall out. And I'm laying there, and the teacher, she comes up, and she says, what are you doing? And I said, I am old man, like crying like a baby, and trying to just make it another minute. And she goes, I think I'm going to like you, right? And God's great in that, because I ended up actually, a couple of years later, getting an opportunity to work with her, because she found out her husband was alcoholic and an addict. See, we don't know who we touch wherever God uses us. And that's the crazy thing. Wherever I've been, God's used that. Kind of interesting, huh? But I began to think that maybe I can just come up with my own spirituality. Maybe I don't need all these different people. I could just come up with my own. And so here's the thing. If you come up with your own, who measures your amount of spirituality? You do. So whatever you choose is cool. I couldn't live like that much longer. So I figured it out. The problem is I need to create my own version of God. And don't laugh too hard, because most of us do that at some point in time. Even in the Christian faith, people do that. They have this concept of who they want God to be, right? And I think a lot of people really see God as a concierge, seriously, like he works for us. And that's not the way it works. But here's the problem with that. The problem is, if I come up and create my own version of God, then I just became the what? Creator of God. And the reason that never worked for me was because all of a sudden I am the center of the world. You see, one of the things that I began to realize was I was right back where I was when I got in the program. I was the most self-centered human being there was. But not only was I self-centered, now I also believed that I could create a version of who God is. That's crazy. That's just crazy. So the problem is, when we do that, then we begin to sit there and we begin to judge everything as though we're victims. Because even the God we created keeps putting us in these crazy positions. Does God do that? I don't believe so. I don't believe so at all. So I finally realized that New Age is really the oldest religion in the world. It's the true religion of self-centered living. And the first time we ever see that is in the garden, right? Adam and Eve. What's Adam come? Think about this now. Adam comes up to Eve, not Adam, I'm sorry. Adam is standing next to Eve while the serpent looks at Eve and goes, hey, the problem with you is you don't have all the knowledge. God doesn't want you to have all the knowledge. Oh, self-centeredness, greed, all this stuff. See, he doesn't want you to know that you could be the center of the universe. Biggest lie ever given to man. And she buys into it. And so does the idiot standing next to her. Because I love it. And she took the fruit and did what? She ate it and then did what? Turned and gave it to Adam. You know what? Not only was that the first New Age movement that ever happened, but it was also the first time we ever saw a major wuss of a guy, okay? I'm just going to put it like that and just say that, right? He was whooped. And here's the best part. He's now upset with God, and he turns and he says this. He goes, oh, wasn't my fault, God. It was that woman you gave me. Yeah, that junk's still around today. The thing is the first thing he did is he sat there and he said, you know what? I no longer trust you, God, because you gave me something that I didn't think that I really needed. And the problem is you, so therefore I'll go do it on my own. So as I started going through all that, I started realizing that maybe I don't need religion. Maybe I don't need it to be about me any longer. Maybe I need to realize that there's got to be another way to do this. And one of the things I will say about New Age is it has a lot of good principles to live by. It should, because it scammed the whole idea off of God himself. Right? What's the best lie? The one closest to the truth. That's why it's such a lie. But at the end of the day, no matter which way I went, I still felt empty. And there's a reason why I felt empty, because Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 tells us, it says, trust in the Lord with how much your heart? All your heart. Man, I'm trusting him a little bit in the religious aspect, but hey, I'm trusting a whole lot of stuff over here with the whole, let me choose all the different types of practices I want to be a part of. Do not depend on your own understanding. That was my whole issue. And my best thinking got me right here. I know y'all can relate to that. Because every time I always tried to figure it out, it ended up worse. But the thing was, I knew there had to be something else in it. So I figured it out. What's the one thing I don't have enough of? Money. Oh, it's got to be money. That's the whole deal. Money fixes everything. And I remember talking to this very, very wealthy man, and that's when I started thinking about it. And he said to me, he says, you know, money will never make you happy, but it'll make misery a whole lot easier. And there's truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. And so I'll go to a meeting, and I sit down, and I watch this man drive up, because we got windows across the back of the Alano Club in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm looking there, and all of a sudden this Rolls Royce pulls up. I'm like, man, that's impressive. And this guy gets out, he comes, and he sits down right across from me. And he's going to read how it works. And as he holds it, he's got that big presidential Rolex on, right? You know? And I'm looking at it. And he says, if you want what we have, I'm like, that's my new sponsor. Because I want what he had. Come to find out, he couldn't put together more than 2 years and had done it multiple times. He just, whatever. The point I'm getting to is it's not always what it looks like. But it still left an impression on me. So I figured it out. And here's the deal. I made a lot of money. And the problem was, when you begin to worship something with all your heart, all your might, all your spirit, all your soul, everything, then you get to the point where you don't care what it takes to get it. You'll do whatever. And all of a sudden, in the religion of money, there's no morality. Right? You just create stacks, man. You just keep stacking. You keep stacking. And no matter what that number was, I still wasn't happy. Thought I was happy at first, because what I found out, I know this is crazy, I was like one of the most popular guys around the program at that time. Most amazing thing. And it was really weird, because I'd be like, hey, y'all want to go to Jamaica for the weekend? And I became the most important guy there. Yeah. But the thing is, you can't sustain that forever. So I didn't care how I got it. And the way I got it wasn't necessarily the best way in the world. But the thing is, I still felt lonely. Like I was still missing something. So guess what I tried again? Religion. So I dipped my toe back in religion. But this time I'm looking for a different style religion. And I ended up literally getting involved in a cult. And I was the most popular dude there. Why? Same reason I had friends. Because every time they needed something, I just did it. But here was the thing. I started realizing why they liked me. I started realizing that it was all about the Benjamins at the end of the day. That was it. But something was different this time. Somehow I knew that it was all about their greed and it was all about them. And I didn't blame God, which was good. Because I kept thinking to myself, maybe there's something about you, God, that's more than I understand. But you know what the biggest thing I learned through that whole process? People will always let you down. People will always let you down. Why? Because they're not God. So I was always taught that whatever that you really want and you go for it, then that's what you have. But the other thing I was taught was anything that you put in front of God and recovery. Let me go back on that. I was always taught anything that you put in front of recovery. Today I don't believe that. I believe it's anything you put in front of God. Because you know what? If I want to disconnect from God, that's the fastest way we can do it. A pipe, a bottle. But I did buy into the fact that if I put anything before God or before my sobriety, that I would lose it. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I had everything, literally. I had the girl, I had the money, lived on the water, nicest place you can live in Eastern Shore. You know? But I was still so miserable. I mean, it didn't matter what I did, how much I had. I would go and spend stupid money for stupid things, clothes that didn't make sense, whatever, to try to make me happy. Because after all, if money is your God, then you want to be all about it, right? So one day I finally get so miserable that I get on my knees and I'm like, God, I don't know if you could still love me. I don't even know if I ever really knew you. But what I do know is I am so miserable. Please, fix everything. You see, I wasn't making money 100% legitimate. The situation with the girl I was living with wasn't 100% great. And so what I really wanted God to do was, if you're real God, you fix my situation. And he did. I lost everything I had in 72 hours. Oh, it made the news. It did all kinds of stuff. Jeff remembers when that went down. He was living in that area at the time. I mean, we were like literally on the news, national, crazy stuff, right? And so here we are. I've lost everything. I mean, everything. And God is merciful. That woman that I was married to found me, that I had been married to, saw me just walking around, didn't know where I was, what happened, and she provided me with the opportunity to go get mental help. You see, my mind was somewhat depraved because my God had let me down. My money had been gone. And it was stolen by the very person that I lived with, by my business partners that I thought I trusted. Of course, later on I found out they were stealing as much from me as I was stealing from them. Life, I felt, was so unfair. But you want to know what I did feel? I felt hope. And I sat in there, and I ended up in a rehab, 7 years sober. And ended up in a rehab because I didn't want to die and I didn't want to use. The only successful thing I had to show for anything was the fact that I hadn't picked up a drink or a drug in 7 years. And from that, God began to use that and work in me in such a different way. I began to find out that I had some other issues. I'd made other people gods for a long time. But for the first time, I realized that God may have a bigger plan for me than I could have ever realized. I started to do things like get on my knees and I said, God, I believe you're real. I hope you're real. And I want you. And you see, for a long time I realized that my whole life I believed in God, that there was a God. And I've even kind of had a concept of who I believed that was. Then I tried to live by the rules. But what I really found out was the truth was that I was an agnostic. Why? Because I had no relationship with God. I just had a concept. And there was freedom in that. I was like, okay, God, I've never had a relationship with you, Papa. Never. Are you willing to have a relationship with me? And as soon as I asked that, I could feel his love. For the first time, I could feel his love. And it was the most incredible thing. It wasn't like I felt warm all inside. I felt hope. I felt like even as crappy as my life looked at that moment on paper, I didn't care. I didn't care. And you see, the most amazing thing is I hadn't talked to my family in 2 years. And my family showed up because, they have family week, right? And I actually had forgiveness. And I actually found truth because, you see, I quit seeing everything through my eyes and I began to see them through his eyes. And I realized that my parents never did anything to me that I thought. It was like all this stuff I let the enemy just bombard me with and cause separation. That's all believing in any of the other stuff ever did for me. But I began to ask for relationship with Jesus. I said, you know what? Talk to me. Show me. And the more that I drew closer to Papa God, I began to find grace in relationship. Let me tell you what grace is to me today. Grace is that he loves me so much, that he's done so much for me, that he forgave me of my sins to the point that I want to know, how much can I do for you? How much more can I do for you? That's grace. That he literally reached into the depths of hell and picked me up, dusted me off, and said, I love you. And every time that I didn't do the right thing, he still loved me. But you see what relationship is to me today is that I want to do the right thing. I don't want to play by the rules. I just want to do what he has for me to do. And that's the biggest thing that I find is so different. I think it's interesting. I had somebody, a couple of people actually, who emailed me, one texted me, one emailed me, and they went through this whole process about, you say that you hate religion. Well, now you understand why I hate it. And one of the things is I asked Jesus, I'm like, I want to draw closer to you. Let me study more about you. What I did find is that he didn't like it either. Matter of fact, you know what he called them? Serpents. Right? But here's the best part. Man, he said, y'all all look good on the outside, but you're dead on the inside. You're like a bunch of tombs, whitewashed. Nothing inside. And you know what? That's who I was. Yeah. Had on the high dollar suits, the right kind of watch, the right kind of shoes, all that kind of stuff, but I was empty inside. Looked good on the outside. That's the most amazing thing, is that all he wanted to do, he didn't care what we look like on the outside. He just wants to give us what's on the inside. So the truth is I started studying, and I'm like, I want to know who you are, right? So I started studying who Jesus was, and one of the things I thought that was the coolest thing in the world was that he didn't keep hardly any of the religious traditions. And that's what this person was telling me. They're like, what's insane is that you, oh man, thank you, Papa. What the insane part was in that whole deal was the fact that I started looking and realizing that I could be like him. That it was okay for me to go back and say, boom, with religion, spirituality. I'm not God, neither are you. I can only be so spiritual, man. What I am is I have the Spirit of God living in me. And that's the greatest amount of spirituality that you can have. So the thing is, as I studied and I liked what I saw more, I started saying, I want to be like you. I want to be like you, Jesus. So I grew my hair long. No, I'm joking. So I sit there and I said, what else can I do? And he hit me right between the eyes. You know what he said? Here, you ready for this? Said it in his word. Everything I do as unto the Father. And see, before I had relationship, when I was in that whole agnostic mode, thinking I wasn't, you had these three different people. You had Holy Spirit, like, he's floating all over the place, not even sure what he does. And then over there you got God the Father, who, he's the disciplinarian. And then you got Jesus. I love Jesus. Everybody loves Jesus. We all love Jesus. Baby Jesus. We all like Jesus. Why? Because we can relate to Jesus, right? Because he's human. And we go, okay. But all of a sudden, what I started realizing was the connection with all this stuff. And when I put them all together, I truly experienced relationship like I never experienced it before. Because you see, the most incredible thing is Jesus himself said, hey, I need to go so I can send somebody even better for you. And that's Holy Spirit. So all of a sudden I got the Spirit of God living in me. That's freaky, dude. I don't have to be the center of attention, the center of the universe, the center of anything. I don't have to live in self-centered living, because as soon as I do, I take literally the Spirit of God and I move him out and move in. That's not where I want to be. And one of the craziest things is, the more that I keep understanding who Papa God is, I begin to understand the heart of a father. You guys can come up. But here's the best part. You ready? You can have all that. You don't have to go through all the stuff I went through. You can have it. And God loves you right where you're at. Right where you're at. But here's the thing that I know beyond anything else. He has a plan for you. And it is not to hurt you, but it is to prosper you. That's his plan. He tells us that. He gave us his word on that. And you know the crazy part about that? Whoa. I hope he never lies. You know why? Because he says, I am not a man who should lie. If I lie, guess what? I'll wipe everything out. I'm part of that everything, so are you. So I'm really hoping he keeps his word. And I believe he will. I believe it so much that I'm willing to give him everything.
I've carried a burden for too long. I wasn't created to bear it. I hear your invitation to let me all go. I see it now. I'm laying it down. I
All right, so let's close it out like we always do, right? How do we close it out? We always turn to who? Our Father, who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us away from temptation and deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.